Hello guys, welcome to a new episode. In today's video, I want to explore one of the greatest readings of Jules Verne. It is called A Journey to the Center of the Earth. My name is Walter Vasquez, and I'm going to read to you the first part of the chapter 1. So, here we go. Chapter 1. My uncle makes a great discovery. Looking back on my incredible adventures, I can scarcely believe they happened. My uncle, Professor Leidenbrock, a German married to my English aunt, invited me to study with him in Hamburg. He was a professor of many ologies: philosophy, chemistry, geology, and mineralogy, to name a few. One day, after hours in his laboratory, I was about to find our cook, Marthy, because I was hungry. Just then, my uncle burst in. Professor Leidenbrock was a character, not a bad man, but choleric and eccentric. To get along with him, you had to obey him. No sooner had his heavy footstep echoed through the house than he was shouting for me. Hurry! 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 I rushed to his room, but he was already stamping on the landing, impatient. Hurry! He cried. Are you coming? My uncle's great impediment was his stammer. It made lecturing difficult, especially with scientific terms, which often resemble tongue-twisting Welsh village names. When he couldn't get a word out, he'd replace it with a very emphatic adjective. Despite this, he was a learned and kind man. I was devoted to him, sharing his passion for mineralogy. We spent our days studying and collecting specimens, surrounded by hammers, acids, and geological samples. He corresponded with great scientists like Sir Humphrey Davy. Before I tell you why he is among me, I must describe him. He was 50, tall, pink, and white, with large goggling eyes magnified by his spectacles. His nose was famously compared to a wing file. He always took enormous strides, clenched his fists, and could be a difficult companion in his moods. He lived in an old house on the Königstrasse, a place that had survived the Great Fire of 1842. It was half wood, half brick, with old-fashioned gables, and almost hidden by ivy and a huge tree.
I am Berenice Lopez and I am going to read the part 2 of the chapter number 1 that is called My Uncle Makes a Great Discovery. Let me introduce you to someone unforgettable, my uncle. He was a rich man, his house was his home, and he had a comfortable private income. But honestly, the most valuable thing in his life wasn't his money, it was his good daughter, Gretchen. Along with the old cook, the young lady, the professor, my uncle, and me, we were the only ones living in the big house. Now I had a passion for geology and mineralogy. Rocks, crystals, fossils, I love it all. If my uncle hadn't been so impatient and intense all the time, our house may be been a perfect little world. Just imagine, he once woke up every morning at 4 o'clock to pull the leaves on his plants, thinking it would help them grow faster. One day he called me into his study. It wasn't just a study, it was more like a museum packaged with strange artifacts, fossils, and especially minerals. I knew everything in there. I cataloged the whole collection myself. But when I walked in, he didn't even notice me. He was lost in an old book, muttering excitedly, "Wonderful, wonderful," he kept saying, tapping his forehead. He was holding a dusty volume with yellow pages, old enough to fall apart just by breathing on it. To me, it looked like an ancient relic no one would buy at a flea market, but to my uncle it was pure treasure. He admired his letter cover, the crisp old letters, and how perfectly I opened in his hand. He said it was hymn scringled by Snorri a 12th century Icelandic author. According to him, it contained a true history of Iceland's early rulers. I asked if it was a less in German, something we could actually read, but my uncle was offended by the idea. He insisted that reading in the original Icelandic was the only way to really appreciate. In fact, he claimed it was writing in the most beautiful, simple, and yet complex language in the world. Is it at least as easy as German? I asked, just a little sarcastically. He wasn't amused. His writing in runes, he shuddered. The language of Iceland, original people created by Odin himself, as I was trying not to laugh, something unexpected happened. A little piece of parchment fell off the book. It was small, maybe 5 inches by 3, and filled with strange, unseen symbols. My uncle snatched it like it was sacred scroll. He examined it for a while. "This is Runic," he declared, with shining eyes. But even he couldn't understand what it meant, and honestly, that made me feel a little better, because I thought those symbols were made to confuse people on purpose. But even if he didn't know what I said, my uncle was sure of one thing. It was all Icelandic, no doubt. And when I say my uncle was a language genius, I'm not exaggerating. He didn't claim to know every language on earth, but he was fluent in most of the important ones. Just when he seemed on the edge of breakthrough, the clock struck 2 and the cook called us to lunch. "Bother the dinner," he snapped, but me, I was starving. So I went to the dining room. I waited a few minutes, but the professor didn't show up. The cook was furious. She'd worked hard, and there was no one to enjoy the meal but me. So I ate everything: the parsley soup, the ham omelette, the veal steak with prawns, the fruits, and the sparkling wine. Just as I finished the last bite of the last apple, a thunderous voice echoed through the house. It was him, my uncle, shouting my name with such a power and urgency that I nearly jumped on my chair. Something big was about to happen, and it all began with that miserable piece of parchment which led us into the greatest adventure of our lives.
I am Edith and I am going to read this chapter 2, The Mysterious Parchment. Professor Leidenberg, a passionate and often intense scientist, makes an exciting discovery while reading an old book. Inside each page, he finds a mysterious parchment written in a strange round character, a type of Icelandic writing. As soon as he sees it, the professor becomes obsessed. He believes this parchment holds a powerful secret, possibly a groundbreaking scientific discovery. He declares that no matter what he must uncover its meaning even if it means giving up sleep and food. He's completely captivated and won't let anything distract him. He calls for his nephew Harry, or narrator, and demands his help. Harry obediently sits down and begins writing in his uncle dictates the straight wrong letter, converting them into the Latin alphabet. When he finished, the result is just a non-essential mix of letters which doesn't appear to say anything at all. Still, Professor Leidenberg is determined. He is convinced that this message is cryptography, a circuit code that needs to be cracked. He compares the parchments to the book it was found in and realizing something important. The handwriting on the parchments is different and clearly from a later time period. Then a big clue appears. On the inside page of the book, almost invisible, is faded name Arne Saknussemm. The professor immediately reconciled it. Saknussemm was a well-known Icelandic scholar and alchemist from the 15th century. Leidenberg believes this man is the one who wrote the message, and he must have done so to hit a valuable scientific discovery. This makes everything more thrilling for the professor. He begins analyzing the letters partner. He counts 132 letters in total, with 79 consonants and 53 vowels, and concludes that the language must be from Northern Europe, where vowels are more common. He suspects it may be Latin, the language of a scholar at the time. If not, he's ready to try other languages like Spanish, French, Greek, and every free. While all of this is happening, Harry is secretly distracted. He's thinking about Gretchen, the professor Knight, and his secret fiancé, though they are deeply in love. His uncle has no idea about their relationship, and he's too focused on his rich not to notice personal matters. Back to the parchment, Leidenberg continued making well attempts to decode the message. He comes up with a strange combination of letters and of phrases, none of which make any sense. Harry, although a bit skeptical, keeps his thoughts to himself so as not to upset his uncle. Finally, after one particularly ridiculous decoding attempt, the professor becomes completely frustrated. He slams his fist on the table, grabs his coat, and storms out of the house in a fit of rage, leaving Harry alone and confused.
Chapter 3. An Outstanding Discovery. The days that followed my uncle's discovery of the strange apartment were unlike anything I have ever experienced. Our quiet, orderly home in Hamburg was transformed into a whirlwind of mutterings, scribbles, and the clattering of papers and books. My professor, my uncle Harvey, was like a man possessed. He barely slept, barely ate, and paid no attention to anything or anyone around him. He was chasing a mystery, a secret buried in ancient symbols that danced before his eyes day and night. There's meaning here. A partner. Aaron Sagnussen was a man. He was a genius. But what did he hide? And how? The parchment was covered in strange letters, written in an ancient script. My uncle believed it to be runic, an old Icelandic alphabet, and he was certain it wasn't just random text. It was coded, a cryptograph. His study became a battleground. Sheets of paper scattered on the floor, books of Icelandic grammar, historical dictionaries, and scientific treatises towered on every surface. I, for one, still doubted there was any real message in that mass of letters. But my uncle believed. and belief, when it burns hot enough, becomes obsession. This is ridiculous. I'm hungry. He hasn't eaten in 2 days, and I haven't either. I watch him work like a man under a spell. He scribbled formulas, tested linguistic patterns, counted consonants and vowels. He muttered to himself, sometimes shouted, sometimes laughed like a man on the edge of the madness. I tried to distract myself. I tried to read. I tried to rest, but my eyes kept drifting back to the parchment. That ancient parchment that had pulled my uncle into its web. At last, I picked up again, holding it in my hands. It was delicate. The edges rough with time. The symbols looked meaningless at first. I turned it over in my hands, sighed, and then I saw something. The ink had bled faintly through the back, and now, from these angles, the letter began to line up, but in reverse. Wait, wait, what is this? I brought the paper closer to the light. The symbol began to shift into real letters, into words, descend into the crater of Joculus Nephilis, which the Saturn of Cartanians touches before the kettles of the lights, and you will reach the center of the earth. I did it, Aaron Saknussemm. I stared at the apartment in stunned silence. Was this a joke? A myth? A dangerous lie? Or was it the confession of the impossible? No, no, he mustn't see this. If he read this, he'll go. He'll make me go. I left him to my fate. I knew what I had to do. I would destroy it, burn it, hide it. End this madness before it began. Just as I reached for the fire, Harry, quick! I've had an idea. If we assume the order of the letters is reversed, he stopped mid-sentence. He looked at me, then at the parchment in my hands. He saw my guilt like smoke in the air. What have you discovered? I hesitated. My heart thundered in my chest, but the truth was too heavy to hide. It's written backwards. For Herbert, there was silence. And then, backwards, of course. Saknussemm, you brilliant devil. And I, how could I not see it? He seized the apartment, eyes ablaze and shaking with excitement. He read the lines loud, louder and louder with each bold word, descending into the quiver of Joculus Nephilis, which the shadow of Scartaris touches before the calyx of July, and you will reach the center of the earth. I did. Aaron Saknussemm. He laughed. He cheered. He knocked over a stack of books and didn't even notice. He was a man reborn. This, this is it, Harry. A scientific marvel. A miracle. Pack your bags. We leave Iceland at once. Iceland? I sat down. My limbs had gone numb. I watched my uncle pace the room like a general preparing for war. He was talking about volcanoes, about maps, about provisions, but all I could think of was that terrifying line to the center of the earth. It was real. The parchment was real. Saknussemm had gone, and now my uncle was going to. And whether I like it or not, I was going with him.
My name is Valenidad, and I will read chapter number 4. We start on the journey. You see, the whole island is made of volcanoes, the teacher said. and noticed that they all had the name Jokul. This Icelandic word means a cold place with ice. In many tall mountains there, when volcanoes burn, it comes from caves full of ice, which is why every volcano on this special island has that name. But what does the name Sneffels mean? I asked. I didn't think there would be a simple answer, but I was wrong. Look at the west side of Iceland. There's Reykjavik, its main city. Follow one its many long, narrow bays from the sea, and what do you see below the 65th line of north? A landship that looks like a leg bone, and in the middle of it, a mound. That is Sneffels, he answered. I didn't have anything to say. Sneffels is about 5,000 feet tall, one of the most important mountains on the island, and it will become famous because we will reach the center of the earth through its top hole. Impossible, I say loudly. Choke. Why impossible? Said teacher Hadwin. Because its top hole is blocked with hot, melted rock and dangerous stone. But what is it not active anymore? That would change things. Yes, it would. There are about 300 volcanoes on Earth, and most of them are not active. Sneffels is one. No burst has happened since the year 1219. After this, I couldn't argue anymore. I thought of another question. But what about Scartaris and the first day of July? My uncle thought hard and explaining that this phrase showed Sagnussen clear direction. Snell has many top holes, and he points out the exact one to go into the earth. As the end of June gets closer, the shadow of Mount Scartaris will fall on that top hole. I agree with your reasons, but it is crazy to think anyone has followed this discovery, I said. Why not? He answered. Science shows it is impossible. Heat gets stronger as you go deeper, making everything melt. Don't worry about the head, my uncle said. You don't know what the inside on the hair is really like, he added, and they told about this more. I don't believe in the danger you talk about. The best way to know is to go and see, he finished. Let's go and see. I agree. Those I wonder how we will do it in the dark. Don't be afraid. We will get past any problems, he promised. And as we go deeper, it should be light. Nothing is impossible. They decided that keeping it secret was very important. After an exciting talk, I left feeling overwhelmed. I went to the side of the Elbe River, wondering if everything I heard was possible, and if my uncle was thinking clearly. Could we really reach the inside of the earth? I started to pack my things but changed my mind. On the way home, I must have dreamed, I thought. I met Gretchen, who listened with amazement and then said he wished she could go on the journey. When I go back home, my uncle was busy with workers getting supplies ready. Why have you wasted time? He shouldn't, ringing a bell. Are we really leaving? I asked. Yes, the day after tomorrow when the sun comes up, he answered. I hurried to my room, not really believing it. My uncle had worked hard, getting many things ready for the journey. The next morning I learned he was serious. My cousin Gretchen was just as excited. At 5 in the morning, a horse-drawn carriage arrived, and we started our adventure into the center of the earth.
I'm Juan Luna, and now it's time for chapter number 5, which is called Fair Lessons in Climbing. Al-Oltona, Al-Zumburun Hamburg, is the chief station on the Kiel Railway, which was to take us to the church of the Belt. In 20 minutes from the moment of our departure, we were in Hosting, and our carriage entered the station. Our heavy luggage was taken out, weighed, labeled, and placed in a huge van. We then took our tickets, and exactly at 7 o'clock were seated opposite each other in a first-class railway carriage. My uncle said nothing. He was too busy examining his papers, among which of course was the famous parchment and some letters of introduction from the Danish consul. My only amusement was looking out of the window, but as we passed through a flagged-off federal country, this occupation was slightly monotonous. In 3 hours we reached Kiel, and our baggage was at once transferred to the steamer. We had now a day before us, a delay of about 10 hours, which fact put my uncle in a towering passion. We had nothing to do but to walk about the pretty town and bathe. At length, however, we went on board, and at 10:30 we were steaming down the Great Belt. It was a dark night, with a strong breeze and a rough sea, nothing being visible but the occasional fires on shore, with here and there a lighthouse. At 7 in the morning we left Korsor, a little town on the western side of Zealand. Here we took another railway, which in 3 hours brought us to the capital, Copenhagen, where my uncle hurried out to present one of his letters of introduction. It was to the director of the Museum of Antiquities, who, having been informed that we were tourists bound for Iceland, did all he could to assist us. One least hope sustained me now. Perhaps no vessel was bound for such distant parts. A Danish schooner, the Valkyrie, was set to sail to the 2nd of June. Its captain, M. John, found the professor's excitement unusual for what he considered a routine trip. The honest sailor took advantage of the professor's enthusiasm to double the fare. On Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock be on board, said M. John, handing us our receipts. Excellent, remarked my uncle as we sat down to a late breakfast. Refresh yourself, my boy, and we will take a round through the town. Our meal concluded, we went to the Congress Newton, to the King's magnificent palace, to the beautiful bridge over the canal near the museum, to the immense cenotaph of Thorwaldsen with its naval groups, and to the castle of Rosenberg. One thing caught my uncle's interest, an unusual steeple on Amak Island's south of Copenhagen. We took a ferry to the dockyard, past narrow strips filled with prisoners in striped trousers, laboring under severe taskmasters, and finally reached Bogfrosser Kirk. The church had an elevated platform with an outer staircase spiraling to the top. Let's climb, he said. I can't. I get dizzy, I protested. But no wasting time, he cut in. After paying a fee, the burgher gave us the key. My uncle bounded out the tower steps eagerly, but I struggled. By the time I reached 150 steps, the cold wind made me dizzy. Come on, Henry. I can't, I cried. Trembling, I got on hands and knees, eyes shut as he dragged me up. When I finally opened them, they were spoon clouds that seemed still. The view was breathtaking, crazy plains, ships like seagulls in the distance, and Sweden's far coast, but I was too terrified to enjoy it. Forced to endure an hour of this, I descended aching like an old man. We'll try tomorrow, my uncle said. After 5 days of lesson, I could finally climb with ease and even enjoy the dizzying heights. And that's the end of chapter number 5.
Chapter 6 Our Voyage to Iceland. At last, the moment of departure arrived. The night before the journey, Mr. Thompson brought of warm letters of recommendation for two important figures in Iceland: Governor Baron Trabe, Reykjavik's mayor Mr. Finsen, and the bishop assistant Mr. Pittursson. My uncle was so grateful he nearly crushed Mr. Thompson handshaking it. In the early morning of the second, we boarded the Valkyrie with all our precious luggage. The captain politely showed us to a tiny, poorly ventilated and uncomfortable cabin. But as my uncle said, suffering is part of a science. We have a good win. My uncle asked eagerly, excellent wine. The captain replied, and with that, the schooner set sail at full speed, leaving comprehension behind. So when we passed Elsinore, and I couldn't help thinking of Hamlet, I imagined the ghost of the Mad Prince will approve of our mission, perhaps even join us on our descent to the center of the earth. Life on board was simple. The crew consists of only 5 Dacian sailors, the captain, my uncle, and me. The carry-on included coal, furniture, clothes, and some grain. The captain estimated the voyage would take about 10 days, assuming we didn't run into bad weather near the Faroe Island. As we passed the northern tip of Denmark, crossed the Skagerrak, and skirted Norway, the sea became raw. To everyone's surprise, my uncle was miserably seasick. He spent most of the journey running in bed, frustrated that he couldn't bombard the captain with questions about Mount Sneffels. By day 11, when finally a boat came Portland and then snow covered, speak of Miral's jockey, our ship buried, we thought about the coast, pacing through waters filled with whales and sharks. Eventually, we sailed the Westmount Islands and Roden, Cape Ricky James Island Western type. A storm forced us out to sea for 2 days, but we returned to sight of land and pilot guided us safely into Alpaca Bay. My uncle emerged pale and thin but glowing with excitement. He grabbed my arm, pointed to a two-peaked snow-covered mountain in the distance, and whispered, "Look, Mount Sniffles." Once ashore, we were greeted by a man in military-looking attire, who turned out to be Baron Tramper. The governor, my uncle, handed him our letters, and though I didn't understand a word of their Danish conversation, I later learned that the governor offered us his full support. We were also welcomed by the mayor, Mr. Vincent, and Son meet an essential figure, Professor Fixon, a local scholar of natural science. He spoke only Icelandic and Latin, which luckily allowed us to communicate quite well. He generously offered us 2 rooms in his modest home, and we sailed in with all our impressive baggage, which drew curious looks from the townspeople. Full of energy, my uncle declared, "The hardest part is over. We're in Iceland, now we just have to go underground." I point out the obvious. Yes, but how do we get back up again? He dismissed my concern completely and rushed off to the public library in search of side assent manuscripts by Arne Sagnusin. Meanwhile, I wandered through Reykjavik. The town was tiny with just 2 streets, one along the shore with red paint, wooden house, and another leading to a small lake and the official residence. The landscape was hard and volcanic with tile vegetation, and the homes seemed more like turf-covered hut than proper buildings. The people said looked strong but somber. On the beach, they were busy driving and salting cod. The country's main sport, their clothes, were coarse and simple, and even when they laughed, it felt more like a release of tension than true joy. The whole town gave me a feeling of melancholy, no stress, barely any regeneration. Just laugh fields and distant glaciers. It felt like a forgotten com- corner of the world. And yet, it was here. It is a strange and silent place that our great journey will truly begin.